Perspective on the U.S.-led air campaign in Syria and Iraq. Joining me from Los Angeles is Professor James Gelvin. He's a history professor at UCLA and the author of a book on the conflicts in the Middle East. Professor Gelvin, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So far, your thoughts on how effective these airstrikes in Syria and Iraq have been?
Well, the thing is that the airstrikes can only do so much. I mean, when these people mass artillery or mass some sort of motor vehicles, then the airstrikes can be effective. If they remain dispersed, then they can't. In the last phase of trying to take a town, be it Kobani or be it Baghdad, they're going to have to mass their forces, which means that they're going to have to expose themselves to air raids. But the air raids are ineffective by themselves, and there's this myth that's arisen since Kosovo about how effective air power actually is. But what happened in Kosovo is that there were forces on the ground along with the air raids, and that's the same thing that has to happen now in Syria and in Iraq.
You mentioned this border town of Kobani in Syria along the Turkish border. For days now, there's been this major fight going on for control of Kobani. How significant is it to keep this from falling into the hands of ISIL?
I think it's important for three reasons. I mean, first of all, it's right in the middle. The town lies right in the middle of the autonomous Kurdish zone called Rojava. And if they're able to take it, then they're able to actually split the Kurdish zone right down the middle. They're also going to be up against the Turkish border, which means that the way the Islamic State raises its money is by smuggling oil mainly across that border into Turkey. And the final thing is that the Turks have been telling the United States, look, we'll get involved with troops on the ground if and only if you begin to take a more active stance in terms of fighting the Assad regime, setting up a safe haven, for example, or a no-fly zone. This sort of takes the United States off the hook in those terms.
Do you envision a scenario where U.S. ground troops would get involved?
No, absolutely not. That's off the table.
Why?
Because American public opinion will not stand for it. We've been at war in that region since for the last 10 years or so. Since 2001 and 2011.
Do you
2001.
But do you think, sir, that these airstrikes, if you continue doing this, that it will take out ISIL?
The airstrikes alone will not take out ISIL, no. But I think ISIL's got a really important problem on its hands, which is the fact that as long as it stays there in and claims territory, what's going to happen to ISIL is that it's painting a target on its back, a bullseye on its back, and which means that the airstrikes are going to be able to degrade it. Now, what Obama says is that there are two parts of this process. The first process is to degrade ISIL. The second process is to destroy it. Will this degrade ISIL? Certainly. Will this destroy ISIL? No.
Are you concerned about the situation in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad? We've been hearing ISIL troops there are dangerously close to Baghdad. Do you see a real possibility that Baghdad could fall?
I don't think there's a possibility Baghdad will fall for a variety of reasons, one of which it is extraordinarily heavily defended by Shiite militias. Secondly is the fact that in order to take a city like Baghdad, once again, they're going to have to mass their forces, which means once again, they're going to be targeted for air power.
And the crisis has certainly created a huge refugee crisis. Do you think Turkey and the neighboring countries are equipped to handle this crisis, the refugee part of it?
Well, no, they're actually not, and that's part of the problem right now. I mean, what the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has attempted to do has been to raise funds, not only for Turkey, but for Lebanon, for Jordan, for various other places where these refugees are. It's gotten out of control at this point. Within the last week or so, there's been about 200,000 refugees from Kobani trying to cross the border into Turkey.
Professor James Gelvin, thank you so much.
Thank you.